Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Luxdates First Date Kit. Today we're talking about dating across cultures, and I'm really happy to have a very special guest, an expert in the field, Tatjana von Bonkewitz. Good morning, Tatjana.
Good morning, Claudia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Tatjana, do you quickly want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm Tatjana. I've been living in Luxembourg for nearly 40 years. My parents are German, but they are refugees, and I was born in London. So already that makes me a little bit cross-cultural by birth. And I'm one of the few people who have 3 passports.
Wow.
So I have a Luxembourgish, a German, and a British passport.
That's quite handy now that the borders are closed.
Exactly. Well, actually, it doesn't really help because I can't get out anyway. But yeah, in the light of Brexit, it does make life a lot easier.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And yeah, culture is something I've turned into my business.
Tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah. So I'm a freelance consultant, HR consultant, and I support organizations in harnessing cultural diversity to their benefit. So how can we communicate better? How can we manage better across cultures, which in Luxembourg is our day-to-day business?
Yeah. Wow. What's the name of your company?
It's Hofstede Insights, Luxembourg, Belgium.
Right. And the company was named after Hofstede, who...
Yes, Gerd Hofstede, who was really the guru, or who was the guru of cultural studies and intercultural communication. He passed away about 6 weeks ago, and he's made the most academic researched studies on culture starting back in the 1960s. And his theory and his models are still being further developed and revalidated every couple of years.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that earlier. Your own background also exposed you to different cultures. And what made you specify, or what made you do this training in intercultural studies?
I would say it was really, I wanted to professionalize what I intuitively knew and used. And I've been working with a Hofstede model for, I think, the better part of more than 20 years. And I formalized it a couple of years ago when we created Hofstede Insights, Luxembourg, Belgium.
Okay. So culture. There are probably many definitions. What is your definition, or the definition that Hofstede would use?
Well, he defines culture as the software of our mind. It's how we are primed, how we are developed in very early age, usually through our parents and the very close environment. And this happens usually on a subconscious level. So we acquire it. And even if we then, like in my case, leave Germany at quite an early age, some certain values still stay with us, and it's very hard, even if we interact mainly with an Anglo-Saxon world, like in my case, or living in Italy, some things still stay.
Right. In your case, what would that be? What's the Germanness that has stayed with you?
For me, it's the value I attribute to expertise. So I would not go for example, a researcher who comes from a fancy university just because it's MIT or because it's the Sorbonne. I would always look at his exact expertise. Right. And maybe that expertise is actually given through a very small university nobody knows about. And that's something I've encountered so many times in my life already as a school student. I liked those professors or teachers best who really knew their subject and who knew how to bring them across.
Right.
They didn't have to be really particularly nice or friendly. If they knew their subject, I could really respect them and learn from them.
Yeah, it's also an element of trust.
Yeah, it really instills trust.
So we live in a world where we have a lot of globalized brands. Wherever you travel, people tend to wear the same clothes, drink the same coffee, eat the same food. In your view, what importance does culture have in our globalized world?
It is actually very, very important. On the one hand, to be aware of your own culture, like in my case, the expertise, for example, how important that is for me. And to understand how other cultures function, because in business relationships, we need to build up trust. So if for me, expertise is trust, and for you coming, for example, from an Asian country where the relationship is extremely important, I might throw all my expertise at you, but you want to build up a relationship. You want to know more about me and how I set up my business and how I live and what I eat, and who we know, both of us. And I would probably say, why are you invading my private zone? Whereas the other person will say, why don't you want to build up a relationship with me?
Right.
And I need to know that in order to be successful in business.
That's really interesting. Now here in Luxembourg, we have so many different cultures living in a very small country. And we all have to get along, and usually there's people who living here who were not born here. And also, as somebody who lives in a country that you were not born in, how does living abroad change a person?
I would say in the best case, you become much more flexible. You adapt because you're constantly confronted with different ways of doing things, which at times may shock you.
Yeah.
At times you would say, oh, wow, this is really fantastic. Next time I interact with somebody, I will use this. It definitely broadens your horizon. I think it's just, for me, it's simply enriching, and it allows you also to try out more, to be much more free and flexible in the way you approach other people, in the way you approach life.
So when it comes to dating, which is of course my subject, and we look at Luxembourg and the many nationalities that we have living in Luxembourg, it's almost inevitable that if you're single and you want to date somebody, that you will meet somebody who comes from a different culture. Are there any combinations that make successful matches?
It depends what you call successful. So if you want to date without having to adapt too much, I would suggest to stay within your what we call cultural mindset. So a group of several cultures, several nationalities, which are quite similar. So we have, for example, the mindset of the connected. Those are the Scandinavian countries, the Nordic countries, and the Netherlands. So if you want to stay within your normal habitual dating way, I would suggest you stay within your mindset. For the Germans, there's the Luxembourgers, there's of course the Austrians, the German Swiss, but also the Hungarians. So it's a similar way of dating. If you go across cultures, I personally find it's much more interesting, but I would highly recommend to just read a little bit about it, or look at the people, and also you can also make up your own framework, I would say, particularly here in Luxembourg, because I think generally speaking the cultures are a lot less extreme than they would be when you go to Italy or to France, because we're all already a little bit used to toning it a bit down. Right.
So definitely, when you want to broaden your dating horizon, it really helps to read about different cultures and see try out how the culture sense would interact with your own sense of values.
Exactly.
And what you find interesting, So as somebody who has lived abroad for a long time, you must have also run into a lot of predefined stereotypes, like Germans are always on time, French are great kissers, Italians are always unfaithful, etc., etc. I could go on. In your experience, are some stereotypes true, or what? How should we deal with stereotypes?
I totally agree. There are quite a few stereotypes which are reality. Generally speaking, my German dates tend to be on time, but just from my personal experience, when it comes to dating and the guy is really interested, he tends to be on time.
Yeah.
Some things I've noticed definitely is that Germans, or also people from the Nordic countries or the Dutch, are much less romantic than, for example, the Italians, or are much less generous with compliments. So going out with an Italian is a shower of compliments, which of course is fantastic for the ego.
Yeah. But does it to stay with the Italian or possibly Spanish? Would that also fall on under that? Stay within that cultural circle. So if an Italian makes you a lot of compliments, what does it actually mean?
It does mean he appreciates you a lot. It definitely doesn't mean that you're the love of his life and he wants to marry you straight away.
Yeah.
This means it is my part as a man to make you feel really good as we go out.
Yeah.
To a nice restaurant or wherever. Because I'm, as a man, also very happy to be seen with a beautiful woman. It also raises my social position.
Yeah.
Because I can actually afford, not only in financial terms, to be seen with a beautiful or several beautiful women. So it's part of the game.
And to turn it around, so if you're going out with a German, Dutch, Swedish person, and they don't give you a lot of compliments, what does it mean?
It doesn't mean they don't like you. It's just that it's not their way of dealing with the start of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you an example from when I was a student. I studied in Italy, and I felt the most beautiful woman in the world being in Italy. Wherever I went, guys would smile at me, and as you can see, I'm not blonde, so and I spoke fluent Italian, so I went by for an Italian, but they really made me feel very beautiful.
Yeah.
Without even making a pass at me.
Yeah.
After a year in Italy, I came back to a German university, and I spent a lot of time in front of the mirror looking if anything had changed. Did I suddenly, look different, have spots all over my face or whatever? And no, it's just a different way how they approach women. So it would be much more matter of fact, and they would also say, yes, I appreciate you. You're a smart lady. But until somebody would say, you're really beautiful and I love your eyes, it would take a long time.
Okay.
It would be much more, matter of fact.
Okay. So on a first date, what can I expect from somebody with a different background? Do you have some examples?
Let me think. For example, again, my Italians. Also nowadays. Usually the dating phase is very intense. So particularly, with social media and WhatsApp, expect a lot of messages early in the morning, something like, good morning, my love, or how are you, sweetie? A lot of these kind of words. They also expect you to have a lot of time for them. So saying, I'm busy, I have a family, I have a business, I need to travel. It's also perceived as something personal. So you don't want to spend time with me? You don't want to put me first? No, because coming from my more Germanic background, I have other priorities at the moment because I still have my kids, I still have my business. So there you need to be prepared for a very intense dating phase.
Right. And if, for instance, I was talking in an earlier video, I was talking about who pays for the bill. And there is this phrase going Dutch. So if you're, for instance, you're dating a Dutch person, or maybe a German person, somebody from the Nordic countries, and the man doesn't pay the bill or offers to split the bill, what does it mean?
It's just normal. It's actually nearly a sign of respect for you as an equal partner.
Right.
I was also quite surprised that more often than not, I paid my part of the bill.
Yeah.
And as the connection went further, we discussed this. And I said, this is actually quite strange for me. And they said, look, but if I offer you, if I invite you, if I pay for you, it merely means that you are somehow obliged to go further with this relationship. Once the relationship is established, you just look at who has more money and who can afford to pay for the bill.
Yeah, or who paid last time, etc. So, coming from different cultures and having relationships across different cultures, there's obviously differences and also that can create tension. Culture can be a big excuse. It's like, this is how I do it in my culture, and you have to accept it. Now, do we really have to accept everything just because culture predetermines it?
No, definitely not. We should talk about it. If you really feel uncomfortable with a cultural way of doing things of your date or your partner, I would talk about it.
Right.
This is just this, I don't know, for example, with the Italian, this is just too much for me. It puts a lot of pressure on me. When I say I put my family or my business first, it's because that's really important for me, but it doesn't mean you are not important. It's just that I just have to allocate my time.
Right.
Please understand this. Talking is really, really the most important thing. Really exchange about it. Ask a lot of questions and listen.
Listen to understand.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned communication. Now, when we date across cultures, we're not usually talking in our own language. The language of choice is usually English or French. What aspect does speaking or dating in a foreign language have, or what influence does it have on the relationship?
From my point of view, it's actually very advantageous because first of all, you have more time to think. You can always say, just give me a minute. I need to rephrase it in English, or I need to find the right word. It also gives you a different insight, and both partners, particularly if both speak a foreign language, need more time to communicate. You focus much more on the finesse of the communication tools. There's of course also the downside that sometimes you don't understand a word, or you think you understand it, and you have fantastic misunderstandings, sometimes over weeks.
Yeah.
I also think that language is really interesting to compartmentalize your relationship. So I speak several languages, and if I'm with a partner who also speaks several languages, I tend to reserve certain languages for certain situations. And that makes it very interesting and allows you to play a lot more. And for me, in a relationship, already starting from the dating, this playfulness is extremely important.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great perspective, to reserve certain languages for certain activities or certain compartments that you have in your life. That's just beautiful. And I hear when I interview people, I hear a lot, well, I want to date somebody from my culture, or I want to date somebody who speaks the same language as I do, has the same first language, because I feel insecure and I can't express my feelings. And I love what you said, that when you both speak a foreign language, you have to be more precise, you have to think more.
And already, if we go to emotions, usually even in our mother tongue, we can name 3, 4, 5 emotions, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're actually not educated to talk in detail about our emotions. So when we have to do that in a foreign language, it actually allows us to explore it even deeper, because we have the good excuse, I don't know the right word for this emotion I'm currently feeling.
Wow, that's so there's so many enriching aspects to date across cultures, and talking to you, I hope that a lot of my listeners are encouraged to go and at least try and consider dating somebody who comes from a different cultural background. Now, somebody with your rich cultural background and the experience that you have, what would you say are 5 tips for dating across cultures?
Tip number 1 is really broaden your perspectives. So really read and remain very, very, very open.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very important to adapt your cultural glasses. So sometimes just wear your Italian glasses. Look at the world from an Italian perspective, or from a British perspective, or from a Dutch perspective. Learn about the different cultures. That is really, really, really important, because otherwise you will misinterpret the dating phase. Then, as we've already said before, ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Really feel comfortable in asking, why do you do this? What makes you do this? How do people do it in your country?
Mm-hmm.
And listen attentively. And I think the most important thing is remain yourself.
Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us on this important subject, dating across cultures. So thank you, Tatjana von Bonkewitz, Hofstede Insights. And if anybody out there has any experiences, any wisdom to share with us as well, how they deal with cross-cultural relationships, I would love to hear from you. So until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.